All right, Brooke Charles, thank you for coming on my podcast to talk today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'll tell you a little bit about what the purpose of this is. Essentially, for my senior workshop, I have to create a podcast, and the purpose of it is to highlight the benefits of marijuana and cannabis. I mean, and in sports, and how there's a stigma against cannabis in general, and I'm trying to just highlight the benefits of it because I think that a lot of people don't recognize that it's more useful than harmful.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So let's just start out by asking you, let's talk a little bit about your experiences with marijuana. Like when did you start? How has it affected you? All that.
So I would say I started smoking marijuana honestly at a pretty young age. The hometown that I grew up in, it was definitely more of a marijuana heavy environment, I feel like, more than like a binge drinking environment.
Mhm.
And I've actually talked to my mom about this a couple times. I think she almost prefers that. I think a lot of times in high school, kids can get really involved in like heavy binge drinking. And even though at the time marijuana was not as popular or as normalized, and kind of had like more of a bad reputation, I feel like, than binge drinking. I
Mhm.
think now that times have changed, it's become a lot more accepted and more of a useful and helpful drug than what it was looked at when I was growing up, more
Mhm.
just like I think like the bad kids did it. But yeah, definitely I started off pretty young, probably like freshman and sophomore year of high school.
Oh, wow.
And being an athlete, it really hasn't affected me as much or that I've seen. If anything, I think it's helped me relax and like focus more when I'm at basketball. Cause when I like leave basketball and have time to like relax and reflect, like it just helps me do that if I'm stressed out, if either with basketball or like school and such.
So you would say that it helps you, like get a different perspective on, how you played or things that you could improve on?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think that a lot of times during the season I could be super stressed out if like I don't think I played that well, or like we didn't get the shot that we wanted at the end of the game, or like our team's struggling. Like being able to come home and like separate my like personal life from basketball, and honestly being able to like get high like helps that a lot.
Mhm. So would you say that you advocate for the use of cannabis in training?
Yeah, I definitely would say that. Obviously everything is like great in moderation. I think there are people that like use it too much or like could possibly get addicted to it, because I feel like a lot of people don't think you can get addicted to marijuana. And obviously there's no studies behind that like shown that like you can or cannot get addicted. But definitely I always just like try to watch how much I'm smoking. Like if we are getting into like game after game after game and I feel like I shouldn't be or like need to like give my body a second, I will. But I haven't had any like, oh, I feel like I'm playing worse or like I feel like I'm more tired because I smoke.
All right. So, most critics see it as a performance enhancing drug. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
Honestly, haven't even heard that people think it's a performance enhancing drug. But um I would say that I do know people, I think it's a personal preference. I do know people that perform better while high and will perform high. I personally will not. It's definitely more of something I use post game or like post practice, like definitely not during, just because I haven't. And like I don't think I could adjust, but I definitely know athletes that do. And like if it works for them, it works for them. That's why I think it's very like personalized drug.
Right. So, how do you consume marijuana? Do you mainly smoke it, or are there like topical forms, or?
Mhm. Growing up, I think I usually smoked it. Now I still pretty much smoke it, but I think going forward and like as I've gotten older, edibles have become more of a thing. And I think as I become older, if I continue to smoke in like my adult life, it'd be more edibles and like maybe smoking here or there, just to like, if it does, obviously it's not as taxing on your lungs as say tobacco, but just for my like personal preference, I prefer edibles better, just like instead of the act of smoking.
Mhm. So you don't really use it for rehabilitation. Use it just more. to, adjust your perspective on how you've played. There's a lot of like topical solutions that you can use like on your knee if you have a bad knee or like an ankle or something.
Yeah, see, I personally have not had any knee or like real severe problems. Um I had a stress fracture in my fibula,
Mm.
and I wasn't really smoking at that time, but when I did, it would help it because I would just have, like, constant pain, and I do have a lot of back pain, and
Oh,
usually I find that, like, when I do smoke, it goes away, and
oh,
I know, like, I've heard that with other people, but I personally haven't had, like, a big knee surgery or anything like that.
sure. So I just want to know, I guess, your overall views of, cannabis, because I feel like a lot of people just think, oh, there's so many stereotypes that go with someone who smokes. So how do you view it?
Yeah, I think those stereotypes are honestly changing how I view it. I feel like it's all personal preference, like however much you want to use it. I
Mm.
think the fact that the NBA is no longer testing for marijuana is a step in like the right direction. I feel like they were targeting athletes and like punish harder than they would punish like um abusers or people that would like cause other crimes. They were like suspending players harder for like smoking marijuana, which I think is ridiculous.
Oh,
And I think they're adjusting to the world. I mean, it's now legal in New Jersey. It's about to be legal in New York State, and it's legal in like a lot of other states. So I think the stereotype is definitely changing. It's no longer like, oh, like if you smoke weed, you're like this stoner, like that sits in the back of the class and like doesn't participate. Now it's like, no, like your professional athletes like smoke weed and your college athletes smoke weed. And it's most likely that the girl next to you who doesn't look like she smokes weed probably smokes weed.
yeah.
So, or people's moms or dads or anything like that. Like I think it's just very much
Mhm.
on the rise, and it'll be interesting to see how the stereotypes change.
I think I actually just saw now this post on Instagram, and it says that New York State just legalized it recreationally.
Yeah, it did. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if
That's
it'll go
positive.
in. It's like not in. What is it? Because usually it takes like a year or so to make it official. Because I know New Jersey did that like a year ago, but it didn't become like official until this year. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's definitely a step in the right direction.
That's interesting. Yeah, and didn't NBA just announced they weren't testing anyone?
Yes, they did like last week or the week before. If the NCAA like follows suit.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you that. Do you think, the sports industry is like taking a turn because of the increase in popularity?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, once it's legal all around the United States or like in the world, why would the NCAA or just the sports regulate it? If it's not illegal anywhere else, I don't see why sports would have to regulate it, especially if they find that it doesn't actually enhance. Like if it's different for everyone, then you can't really regulate it. I feel like you can't prove it's not like steroids where like it's going to improve your performance. It's more like it might improve my performance because of how I play. But if it
Mm.
doesn't, like I don't think someone who doesn't smoke is like missing out.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's so many states that have already, or like Arizona. Who was it? It was like Arizona, New Jersey, um, New Hampshire, or like some. There was like a series of states that just all passed it. So we talked about the NCAA. Do you think that potentially the policies against the use of cannabis, like testing and all that, will be banned or kind of abolished in the upcoming years?
Yeah, I think so. I think they might follow suit of like the NBA, and I think it might take more of the professional athlete the professional athlete associations to do that for the NCAA. I know the NCAA honestly has a lot more problems right now, but I think with all of the issues that they do have, this might be something that they tackle to honestly get the public like off their back.
Yeah, you would think the NCAA would change it, especially because a lot of college athletes obviously, consume marijuana and
And honestly, the drug testing policies are kind of lax to say the least
yeah.
anyway, so they might as well just stop testing
Mhm.
for at least marijuana. Other like steroids and things like that
Yeah.
obviously should still be tested, but
Mhm. So you said that you started, at a pretty young age. Would you say that your views changed on cannabis between then and now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, growing up, I swore I was like, I will never smoke weed. I will never drink until I'm 21. And I
Mhm,
think that's me just being like naive at the age of 13, 12.
mhm,
And I think growing up in those young ages, I definitely saw it as more like something I had to hide and like not tell people, obviously, because like my parents were definitely not huge fans of it, so I didn't tell them.
mhm.
But I think now that as it's gotten more like normalized and I've become more of an adult and like more responsible with when I smoke weed and like I'm not like smoking weed when I have stuff to do or like before class or before practice. It's more just like a relaxation, like at the end of the night or to sleep or to relax after practice. So I think as I've found the way that I like to use it, it's definitely changed like my perspective on it.
Would you say there's also, a age that's too young to start?
Yeah. Well, I just think there'd be an age that's like too young to start like anything. I feel like when you're 18 and like you're an adult and you can make your own decisions, like that's a good time. But it's also just like preference by person, preference by parents. Like you are getting high and like in a different state than like a normal mental state. And I think it might be like it could be trigger like people's anxieties. It might help for their anxieties. Like it might. I think again, it's really everyone's prep like different for everybody and therefore that I don't think there could be like a set age for it, but I feel like if they're going to keep normalizing it, they probably will set an age. I mean, as of now, it is 21 still in
Yeah.
the where it's legal. I'll be interested to see if it goes down to 18 or they keep it at 21.
Mhm. Yeah, so we just talked about drug testing a little bit. Would you say that, I mean, D1 and D3 and D2, they're all different breeds actually. Would you say that if you were a D1 athlete, would that deter you from consuming cannabis because of the possibility of testing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. If they're still testing, I think just the possibility of losing your season is enough to deter people away, but I definitely think there are also ways around it. Personally, I know a lot of teams, including my team, have drug policies to avoid that. So I definitely would just like if I could go back to when I was like recruiting in high school, I would talk to the players and see what their policies are to help make my decision.
Right. Aside from, your athletic life, how do you incorporate, weed into your, normal personal life?
Yeah. It's definitely like a social thing. I think it is for a lot of people. Like my roommates and I all smoke and it's definitely something that we enjoy to do together. Like we'll definitely like and we'll just like go on walks and like but we won't always do that high. Like I feel like we're not always smoking and always
Mhm.
taking edibles. It's kind of like a when we can, like if we have a lot of homework, like we're not gonna like just sit and get high. Like after a long day of class though, we might go and like get high and take a walk or like go on a drive. And I think that's like the healthiest way to do it. I feel like if you sit in your house and just smoke all the time, it could get very like depressing or like in that way addictive.
Yeah.
But definitely a social aspect. And just if I'm having like say a down day or like and want to like change it up, like we'll smoke and like do something fun. And it's just kind of like a part of what we're doing, I guess.
So going back to your athletic career, can you recall, like one challenge or one difficult, aspect that cannabis helped you?
I would definitely say when I had my stress fracture. I think when the days that like I didn't smoke and like it was hurting really bad,
Mhm.
like I was just like really down on myself and like really didn't want to play and really was thinking of like just taking like sitting out, like taking a couple days off. But when I was able to like um because the pain sometimes would get so bad that like I couldn't sleep. Like it
Mhm.
was just so uncomfortable. But when I would smoke to sleep and like the pain would subside, it definitely helped me and I was more eager to play and like just felt better about it.
Mhm. That's good. So my last question for you is, obviously in the college atmosphere, alcohol is definitely plays a big role. So would you say that more people are, doing both, or more people are just consuming cannabis or alcohol? I feel like it's kind of a tough question, but I just wonder what your thoughts are on that, especially as an athlete who, you know, is in that atmosphere.
Yeah, I feel like definitely for athletes, um, especially like after talking to girls on my team, I think even in female athletes, it's a lot less normal for them to be smoking marijuana or
Mhm.
like consuming cannabis in that way. I feel like it's more taboo. I
Yeah.
feel like on the men's side, it's definitely more normalized, which is a whole nother topic we could discuss. But and I think in the like general population, I also think we go to like a very like heavy marijuana based school because it's in a very like area where weed is accepted and not looked on as a bad thing,
Mhm.
being in Ithaca, New York. But yeah, I would say in like the population of non-athletes, it's definitely more both, maybe more on the marijuana side, but within athletes, I feel like it's more of the binge drinking
Mhm.
and then some of them smoke weed.
Mhm.
Still a good amount, but maybe not as much, especially on the women's side.
Yeah, so why do you think that is, that the women don't smoke and the boys do?
To be honest, I think it's like a long-standing stereotype that like women smoking is like unattractive. From that's like personally what I think,
Mhm.
or just like the women that go here and play are coming from very like um heavy binge drinking states or like towns. Like as I said, I came from a very like marijuana based town. Like I think
Mhm.
that's just the town that I came from. But I think a lot of the girls that I know come from like you binge drink, you don't like smoke with your friends.
So with the boys, you would say it's just like.
I think it's just like, oh, like we're boys and we smoke. But also I've come in contact with a lot of guys who do not smoke.
Mm, okay.
But that's just from like personal experience. I feel like I would say honestly more of the men on the men's team smoke than more women on the women's team.
Mhm. It's interesting that you said that, with athletes, it's different, like, I mean, compared to non-athletes. So I feel like, yeah, I don't know, that's actually an interesting
I feel
thing.
like a lot of the athletes here, especially, are very uneducated on marijuana and
Yeah.
like aren't don't know much about it. So they assume that like if you are smoking, like it's probably hurting your performance, even though it really isn't and
Yeah.
it could benefit them. I think that's just more of what it is. So they're like, I shouldn't smoke because I'm an athlete, or like if you have these policies and teams have these rules, they
Mhm.
look at it as a bad thing instead of looking at it as a positive.
Right. Yeah, so do you think that, with everything happening in current events, that potentially even athletes themselves would change their mind and, start to consume it, or.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I feel like more athletes, especially during COVID and like not having their sport all the time, looked more into it and got more involved in smoking.
Alright, well, I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you for coming on today and talking about this controversial topic with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.